This morning, President Biden is not backing down, telling his staff, let me say this as clearly as I possibly can, as simply and straightforward as I can. I am running. In a new radio interview, the president again acknowledging his brutal debate performance.
I had a bad night. And the fact of the matter is that, I screwed up. I made a mistake. That's 90 minutes on stage. Look at what I've done in 3.5 years.
But NBC News has learned that privately, President Biden is torn. In some discussions, he's acknowledged that the debate aftermath may grow too large to overcome, while in others, he has been completely dismissive of the idea of dropping out of the campaign, according to 4 people familiar with the matter. The president weighing his instinct and the advice of his family to stay in against calls to step out. He can see that there is potentially no real path, a source told NBC. But he's being pushed. Still, publicly, the White House staying the course.
He's moving forward with his campaign. He is staying in the race. I just stated that the president is not dropping out.
Overnight, the president and vice president meeting with Democratic governors at the White House.
We pledged our support to him because the stakes could not be higher.
That came after a day of reaching out to top congressional leaders. A second House Democrat, Arizona's Raul Grijalva, calling on President Biden to drop out. And another Democratic congressman, Seth Moulton, saying all viable options should be on the table. At his only public event Wednesday, a Medal of Honor ceremony, the president ignoring reporters' questions.
Mr. President! Mr. President!
A New York Times Siena College poll done after the debate suggests that President Biden now trails former President Trump by 6 points among likely voters, though that's within the margin of error. Former President Trump, in a video shared on his social media site, falsely claims President Biden quit the campaign and attacks Vice President Kamala Harris with profanity.
He just quit, he's quitting the race. Is that right? Yep, I got him out of the race. And that means we have Kamala. I think she's going to be better. She's so bad. She's so pathetic. It's so amazing. It's just so bad.
The Biden campaign is blasting former President Trump this morning for, quote, demeaning the vice president, adding that he's hit a new rock bottom. The next few days are being viewed as critical for President Biden. Tomorrow he travels to Battleground, Wisconsin for a rally and does his first lengthy TV interview after the debate. Many congressional Democrats will be watching that closely, Laura.
All right, Gabe, thanks for your reporting.
All right, let's bring in NBC's senior Washington correspondent, Hallie Jackson, for a little bit more on this now. Hallie, good morning to you. We heard about this call between the president and Democratic governors, President Biden insisting that he is in it to win it. But, Hallie, I mean, what at this point can the president, can this administration realistically do to win over the skeptics at this point?
It's a great question, Craig, and the answer seems to be to give it some time and to get the president out there. Now, a campaign source tells me overnight that they believe that the governor's meeting and some of the public support we saw after that demonstrates what they see as a united front of those elected leaders rallying around President Biden. Look at Governor Gavin Newsom, for example. He's speculated to be a future presidential candidate. He said he plans to headline events in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in New Hampshire this holiday weekend. But remember, for some of these other skeptical Democrats, it really is less about what the campaign says President Biden can do, Craig, and more about seeing and hearing from the president himself, seeing where the polls go and seeing what donors do.
And Hallie, despite the public displays of support, perhaps what's really going on down underneath, though, are some real cracks in the coalition.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, Laura. Let's talk about a couple of different buckets here, 3 of them. Voters, lawmakers, donors. Start with the voters. You heard those poll numbers that Gabe ran through showing some slippage for President Biden, possibly a warning sign. Now, the campaign has pushed back hard. They suggest their internal polling shows this race remains very close, that it's too soon to get a full picture of where things are. But one of the Democratic lawmakers who's called on President Biden to step aside tells me that he has overwhelmingly heard from his constituents that they do not want to see the president at the top of the ticket. Now, that's anecdotal. That's one instance. But keep in mind that there are now 3 House Democrats, members of Congress, calling on the president to withdraw. You've got others looking at not just the poll numbers, but also where the donors go. And there's a crack on that front, too. You now have the co-founder of Netflix, who's given millions of dollars to Democrats, joining those calling for the president to come off the ticket. We're talking about Reed Hastings. In an email to the New York Times, he says he thinks the president should step aside to allow, in his words, a vigorous Democratic leader to take on Mr. Trump. Laura.
Hallie, really quickly before we let you get out of here, let's talk about the former president. Minus that video we just saw of him in the golf cart there. It does seem as if he's keeping a bit of a lower profile in the wake of a debate win, in the wake of some legal victories as well. What's the strategy here?
So his top advisors, Craig, have been saying publicly since Thursday night that they do not think that President Biden is going anywhere, notwithstanding what you heard from the former president in that video. They think he's not going to choose to drop out. That New York Times Siena poll shows 30% of likely Republican voters think that President Biden should remain the Democratic nominee. See those numbers? That's up 8% since the debate. Now, as for Mr. Trump, he's going to hold a rally in Florida on Monday, right in the middle of all this VP running mate speculation, and another in Pennsylvania later next week before that Republican convention. Look at this big picture for the former president. His opponent is in the midst of a political crisis. He himself just got a legal win from the Supreme Court, and he's heading into this 2-week period where he'll announce his running mate and then see his own party celebrate him for 4 days in Milwaukee. Now, still, in some of my conversations with people in Mr. Trump's orbit, they've pointed out there is still a ways to go until November and plenty of work to do.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on our streaming channel, Today All Day. To watch, head to today.com/allday or click the link right here.